There's nothing this court can do that would provide justice in my eyes.
I exercise my right
if
to
you
be present.
stop for a
May I
minute,
have the order of the court?
I'll explain it.
I'm not no killer. I'm not no murderer. I'm not no bad person.
Craziest sentences ever handed down. Sentencing is the final sound a courtroom makes. Behind every number is a moment when time stops. A judge finishing a sentence. A defendant realizing there is no appeal that can return what was taken. Families bracing for words they have waited years to hear. Some defendants cry. Some stare forward. Some say nothing at all. In this video, these are not stories of the crimes themselves, but of the moment justice speaks. The longest sentences ever handed down and the human reactions that followed. Case 1. James Holmes. Age at sentencing 27. Location Aurora, Colorado. Crimes: first-degree murder, attempted murder, explosives possession.
This began today in the trial of James Holmes, charged with murdering 12 people and wounding 70 in a Colorado movie theater.
James Holmes was a neuroscience graduate student when he began withdrawing from academic life in early 2012. His professors noted deteriorating performance and increasingly erratic behavior. Holmes left his university programs shortly before the attack, but retained access to student mental health services. On July the 20th, 2012,
this guy walked into that theater and tried to murder everyone in it.
Holmes entered a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado during a midnight screening of The Dark Knight Rises. He was heavily armed. Within minutes, 12 people were dead and 70 others were injured. The attack caused widespread panic, confusion, and long-term trauma among survivors.
Thousands of people, and as one of the victims put it, he took life from hundreds or thousands who are still breathing.
Investigators later uncovered extensive preparation. Holmes had legally purchased multiple firearms, accumulated thousands of rounds of ammunition, and constructed explosive devices inside his apartment.
Stockpiling of the armament inventory and the setting up of the booby trap, there was a lot of thought, so this is what we would call a proactive attack behavior.
Prior to the shooting, he mailed a notebook to a psychiatrist describing violent fantasies and detailed plans. Holmes was arrested without resistance outside the theater.
He was asked about the death penalty and said originally he wasn't going to oppose it. But then in the videotape, with families and victims listening in the courtroom, he said he will now fight it, Charlie, because his death, as he put it.
At trial, the defense presented evidence of severe mental illness, including diagnoses of schizophrenia and psychosis.
He could not control his thoughts, that he could not control his actions, and he could not control his perceptions.
Prosecutors argued that Holmes demonstrated clear planning, intent, and awareness of his actions. The jury rejected the insanity defense. Holmes was convicted on all counts. The court imposed 12 consecutive life sentences without parole, followed by 3,318 additional years for attempted murder, ensuring permanent incarceration. Case 2, Ariel Castro, age at sentencing 53. Location Cleveland, Ohio. Crimes: kidnapping, rape, aggravated murder.
News: the man charged with holding 3 women captive in his Cleveland house for more than a decade will now undergo competency testing.
Ariel Castro lived in a residential neighborhood in Cleveland, Ohio. Over the course of more than a decade, he kidnapped and imprisoned 3 young women inside his home. The victims were held in isolation, restrained for long periods, and subjected to repeated abuse. Castro maintained control through physical confinement and psychological coercion. The crimes remained undiscovered until one of the victims escaped in 2013 and alerted authorities.
Cleveland 911. You need police. Help me, I'm Amanda Berry. You need police, fire, or ambulance. I need police. I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years. Okay, and what's your address? 2207 Seymour Avenue. Okay, talk to the police when they get there. Okay.
Castro was arrested and charged with hundreds of counts related to kidnapping, rape, and aggravated murder. To avoid trial, he entered a guilty plea. During sentencing, the court emphasized the prolonged nature of the crimes.
You understand, you will be in prison for life. You don't even have the expectation or the hope of getting out. Is that clear?
I do understand that, Your Honor.
and the systematic deprivation of liberty inflicted upon the victims. Castro was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
The law states that a prisoner serving a sentence of life imprisonment without parole under 2929.03 is not eligible for parole, will not receive parole, and will be imprisoned until death. Do you understand this?
Plus 1,000 additional years, a sentence intended to exceed any conceivable lifespan.
Begin with that breaking news from Ohio, a truly stunning development. Ariel Castro found dead of an apparent suicide.
He was placed into the prison system under strict supervision. Less than 1 month later, Castro died by suicide while incarcerated. Case 3. Charles Edmund Cullen, age at sentencing, 43. Location, New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Crimes, serial murder of hospital patients.
He may have been one of the most prolific serial killers in history, and he might still be taking lives, if not.
Charles Cullen worked as a registered nurse in hospitals across New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Over several years, patients under his care died unexpectedly. Many deaths were initially attributed to natural causes or medical complications. Eventually, patterns emerged. Investigations revealed Cullen had administered lethal doses of medications to critically ill and stable patients alike. He later confessed to killing at least 29 individuals, though investigators believe the true number was higher. Cullen cooperated with authorities and provided detailed confessions. He pleaded guilty to multiple counts of murder across several jurisdictions.
Yes, Your Honor.
And are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Mask, would you be kind enough to elicit a factual basis?
At sentencing, the court cited abuse of trust, exploitation of vulnerable patients, and the extended duration of the crimes.
They went into the patient's room sometime later that night or morning and gave the medication to Reverend Gall.
Cullen received 18 consecutive life sentences with parole eligibility calculated to the year 2403, a date beyond any realistic expectation of release. He remained incarcerated under protective conditions until his death years later. Case 4. Darrell Edward Brooks Jeter, age at sentencing, 40. Location, Waukesha, Wisconsin. Crimes, vehicular homicide, reckless endangerment. Darrell Brooks had a lengthy criminal history prior to November 21st, 2021. On that day, he drove a sport utility vehicle through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin. The attack occurred during a public event attended by families, children, and elderly spectators. Brooks drove at speed through the parade route, striking participants and spectators. 6 people were killed. More than 60 others were injured. Brooks was arrested shortly after the incident. He chose to represent himself at trial.
I would like to represent myself pro per.
What does that mean to you, sir?
Again, because I've already said it on record, to represent myself as a sovereign citizen.
And frequently disrupted proceedings with pseudo-legal arguments. Despite this, the prosecution presented extensive video evidence, eyewitness testimony.
Heard a car hit another car or an abutment or a deer. If anybody's ever hit a deer with their car.
And forensic analysis demonstrating intentional conduct. The jury found Brooks guilty on all counts. The court imposed 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole.
That is 762 and a half years of initial confinement,
plus 762 years and 6 months for additional charges ensuring Brooks would never be eligible for release. Case 5. Raymond Childs 3, age at sentencing, 21. Location, Indianapolis, Indiana. Crimes, 6 counts of murder, attempted murder.
I'm not no killer, I'm not no murderer, I'm not no bad person. Just as I sit here 4 years ago, I'm innocent. It's not a day that goes by where I don't think about them or wish that they was here.
Raymond Childs III lived with his family in Indianapolis, Indiana. In January 2021, he opened fire inside his home, killing 6 people.
And listened as there was a brief struggle before his brother shot their parents to death. He heard his father's last words, "I love you, Raymond."
The victims included his parents, siblings, a pregnant woman, and her unborn child.
Murdering most of his family. His teen brother, who survived that shooting.
One brother survived the attack. Childs was arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. During trial, prosecutors presented forensic evidence. survivor testimony, and a detailed timeline establishing Childs as the sole shooter. The jury convicted him on all major charges. At sentencing, the court emphasized the scale of loss and the deliberate nature of the attack. Childs received 360 years in prison, structured to eliminate the possibility of parole. Case 6, Ryan Stone, age at sentencing, 33. Location, multiple counties, Colorado. Crimes, first-degree murder, attempted murder, kidnapping, assault. Ryan Stone was a convicted felon when he initiated a violent crime spree across Colorado in December 2012. The events began in Colorado Springs when Stone shot and killed a man during a dispute. He then fled the scene in a stolen vehicle. Over the following hours, Stone committed a series of escalating crimes across multiple counties. He carjacked multiple vehicles at gunpoint, assaulted several individuals, and exchanged gunfire with law enforcement. One police officer was shot and seriously wounded during the pursuit. Stone was eventually apprehended after crashing a stolen vehicle during a high-speed chase.
If officers hadn't chased him, lives wouldn't have been at risk. He didn't mention that he'd stolen a car with a child inside. Now, Stone reached speeds of 100 miles an hour as he sped south, ramming into other cars and striking Trooper Bellman.
Prosecutors charged Stone with numerous violent felonies, including first-degree murder, attempted murder of a peace officer, kidnapping, and aggravated assault. The prosecution emphasized the sustained and mobile nature of the violence, describing the crimes as a continuous threat to public safety across jurisdictional boundaries.
We do see crimes more and more on video. This was unique in that it was covered by the news, I think. That's what made it a bit more unique than we see in every.
Stone was convicted on all major counts. The court imposed a cumulative sentence of 160 years in prison, structured to ensure permanent incapacitation within the state correctional system. Case 7, Dynel Lane, age at sentencing 35. Location, Longmont, Colorado. Crimes, attempted murder, fetal assault, burglary. Dynel Lane targeted a pregnant woman after responding to an online advertisement for maternity clothing.
An unborn baby named Aurora, who didn't survive after being cut from her mother's womb, is the focus of a trial going on in Boulder right now, yet
in March 2015, Lane arrived at the victim's home in Longmont, Colorado. Once inside, Lane attacked the woman, stabbing her and attempting to remove the unborn child from her body.
Even before Dynel Lane was arrested, accused of stabbing Michelle Wilkins and stealing her baby,
the victim survived after emergency medical intervention. The fetus did not. Lane was arrested shortly after the attack.
To hear why you did this, hungry to desperate to hear you explain what happened to Aurora.
Investigators determined the crime was premeditated and motivated by Lane's desire to obtain a child.
Planned this attack and left Ms. Wilkins to bleed out and die.
She was charged with attempted first-degree murder, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, assault, and burglary.
The jury find the defendant, Dynel Catrice Lane, guilty of attempt to commit murder in the first degree.
At trial, prosecutors presented forensic evidence, medical testimony, and digital records showing deliberate planning. Lane was convicted on all counts. The court imposed 100 years in prison, reflecting the severity and premeditated nature of the offense. Case 8, Robert Martinez, age at sentencing, 29, location, San Antonio, Texas. Crimes, capital murder. Robert Martinez was a member of a street gang operating in San Antonio, Texas. In 2014, Martinez participated in the murder of a man who was lured to a location.
Through the ditch, there's houses right there, and that's when he takes his aim shot and fires at him, and he slumps over, and then he does one shot at him.
Known among local gang members as Hell's Gate, the victim was killed as part of a targeted execution tied to gang activity. Investigators linked Martinez to the crime through witness testimony, surveillance evidence, and corroborating forensic findings. Martinez was charged with capital murder.
Testimony today in the Hell's Gate murder trial of Robert Martinez focused on physical evidence. The witnesses, crime scene technicians. Paul Venema tells us that the trial almost took an unexpected turn.
Prosecutors argued that the killing was deliberate, organized.
Had their punishment verdict, 99 years in prison.
Martinez killed a man in what prosecutors called an execution-style murder.
And intended to reinforce gang control. He was convicted and sentenced to 99 years in prison, a term designed to function as a de facto life sentence under Texas law. Case 9, Jared Chance. Age at sentencing, 28. Location, Orlando, Florida. Crimes, second-degree murder. Jared Chance was convicted in Florida for the murder of his former girlfriend in 2014.
Judge in a Kent County courtroom today sentenced Chance to 100 to 200 years in prison, well above the sentencing guidelines. The sentence came after the victim's parents addressed their daughter's killer in court.
He was sentenced to 25 years in prison and transferred into the Florida Department of Corrections. While incarcerated, Chance became involved in multiple violent incidents within the prison system. Reports documented repeated assaults on other inmates.
That you be committed to the Michigan Department of Corrections to serve a minimum of 100 years to a maximum of 200 years. I am purposely doing this so that you will not be eligible for parole.
And conflicts with correctional staff. In 2023, Chance was killed inside the prison. Authorities confirmed he died after being assaulted by another inmate. The incident was investigated internally, and no charges were filed against staff. Chance's sentence was never completed. Case 10, Richard Allen, age at sentencing, 52. Location, Delphi, Indiana. Crimes, murder, felony murder. Richard Allen was arrested in 2022 in connection with the 2017 murders of 2 teenage girls near a hiking trail in Delphi, Indiana. The case remained unsolved for years before investigators identified Allen as a suspect.
This is Richard Allen, the guy who prosecutors argued was Bridge Guy. A jury found him guilty in their deaths late last year.
Evidence presented at trial included forensic findings, witness statements, and digital analysis placing Allen at the scene. In 2024, a jury convicted Allen of 4 counts, including 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of felony murder related to attempted kidnapping. At sentencing, the court imposed the maximum allowable terms. Allen received 130 years in prison, structured as consecutive sentences for each count. Sentences are numbers, but inside courtrooms, they are felt, not calculated. They land in the silence after the judge speaks, in the way a defendant's shoulders drop, in the way families finally exhale or collapse. For some, justice arrives measured in years. For others, it arrives knowing the door is closed forever. These 10 cases are not remembered for spectacle alone. They are remembered because they remind us what happens when violence meets consequence, and when courts decide that time itself is no longer enough. For more courtroom experiences, and if this breakdown made you stop, think, or question how justice is measured, support the channel. Like the video, share it with someone who follows true crime, and subscribe, because the next case is already waiting in a courtroom somewhere.